Hello, how are you? Welcome to the third Makar to Makar. It's really brilliant to be here, fantastic to be here, and it's been great to go from my home to your home. Every week for the next 16 weeks, we're doing this Makar to Makar series. Makar, as some of you might know, is the word for the Scottish national poet. At the moment, that's me. I'm the third modern Makar. But it's a word that was around for a long, long time. In fact, Chaucer was described as a Makar years ago by Dunbar, so it's not exclusively a word to describe Scottish writers. In this series, I like to think of us kind of passing the baton, Makar to Makar, maker to maker, bard to bard. This is going to be a rich and heady mix of poetry and song, two of my favourite things, poetry and music. And I hope you just really enjoy it. I hope you have a great time. When I was a wee girl, we used to have party socials in my house, which were fantastic, you know. And people would sing their songs and read their poems, and they'd turn up at the door, and my dad would say, "A fiver in the bucket, comrade." So we're not taking any fiver in the bucket at all, but we hope to kind of recreate that lovely atmosphere of poetry and song. Tonight, joining me is the wonderful poet and playwright Gerda Stevenson, and also the fantastic singer Claire Brown. But to kick things off and just get us started, I'm going to read a poem of mine called Granite, and you'll see the relevance of this poem in a wee while. My birth parents met in Aberdeen University, which we know is called the Granite City. And so this is really a poem about kind of searching for your birth parents and finding it, the process somewhat dissatisfactory. Granite. I found the quine and I found the loon in the sparkling granite tune, just as a har was coming doon, just as a cloud had slared the moon. The father's face is set in stain, the mother cries and is all alane. I've wandered richt up Gaelic Lane, down Union Street, and back again. Just as granite comes for grain, gin there'll be grown folk wait in vain, tracking down the past and the rain, for as lang as you'd call a stain, a stain. Every week I'll be reading a wee short poem, and yeah, if I run out of wee short poems, I guess I'll have to write some more before our 16 weeks are over. Anyway, without further ado, I would like to introduce into the Zoom room, as it were, my guests of this evening, Gerda Stevenson and Claire Brown.
Hello.
Hello, Gerda.
It's lovely to be here, Jackie.
Lovely that you're here.
And hi, Claire.
I'm just waiting for Claire to come along as well.
Am I there? Am I here?
You're here, Claire. Nice
God.
to see you, Claire. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Thank goodness. It's a kind of miracle, isn't it? It's a miraculous process. I still can't get my head around it. Anyway, I'm going to introduce Claire properly later. But for now, I'd like to introduce you to Gerda Stevenson. Gerda is the wonderful poet. She's written many collections of books. The most fantastic one that I got completely engrossed in fairly recently was Quines, which is the Doric word for girl, as loon is for boy, a quine and a loon, as you heard in that wee poem of mine. Hope you like the wee neat connection there. But so I really love Quines because it gives you such a sense of women in Scottish history that have often been completely and utterly neglected. She's a director of many plays. She's even directed one of mine, which was thrilling way back quite a few years ago, I think about 15 years ago, and it was at the wonderful Glasgow Theatre, Oranmore. You'll often hear her on the radio. She's an all-round good egg. She uses a lot of old Scots language. You're going to love her. Please welcome to the Zoom room, Gerda Stevenson.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Jackie. And I'm going to start with a poem from my first poetry collection called If This Were Real. And the first section of this collection is autobiographical. I grew up in the Scottish borders, and this is me about probably age 5-ish. Eden. Bees cruised on a breathless noon. Cabbage white butterflies flickered in the lane. Our doll's china tea set cracked the silence as we crept over the neighbour's dyke, spread a picnic under the rhubarb and stripped to our pink Scots skin. We screeched and whooped among the tall red stalks, striped by their shadows in war paint glow, squealed at the slap of leafy parasols, shrieked as caterpillars fell to our knees from pinholes of light where they grazed. Heels and stick click down the path, fingernail flames rip through leaves. Get out of my garden, you dirty, dirty girls. So that was our neighbour who terrified us, and we had no idea that we were dirty. We'd just taken our clothes off because we were hot in an unusually warm Scottish summer. So the next one I'll read is, it arose from a homework exercise that my daughter had when she was at primary school. They were studying the Second World War. My daughter has Down syndrome, and she has this amazing way of entering into a story. If she's seeing a film or you're reading a book to her, she kind of almost becomes part of it, and it's as if she's in it, as if she's one of the protagonists. I thought I would choose this poem because it's about experiencing the idea of being an evacuee, and I think a lot of us at the moment are feeling a bit like that, separated during COVID-19 from loved ones, and so I felt that it might kind of ring true here in this situation. Homework for Evacuee Day. We select 10 objects, things you'd pack if this were real, and you place them with all the care you sense they're due from all you've learned on the matter, in a child's old-fashioned suitcase, the one I carried in a play about a war, the kind we'd give you if you were leaving us for safety, if now were then, and this were real. A skipping rope, its arc in the air, a last fling before we wind it tight. A yellow mouth organ waiting for your breath. A book whose story will feed you every night, though you'll have to read yourself to sleep. And your tattered, one-eyed mermaid, nocturnal swimmer by your side, soon to be beached on unfamiliar sheets. A ball of wool skewered with needles to make the scarf we started, if you can remember, in, over, through, off, without my prompt. Pencil and paper to tell us of your days, and a box of dominoes to count them, I say. A photo of us all, arms linked, laughing under autumn apples. Before the first bomb fell, you say. As if what's happening is real, and you really have to go. So the last poem I'll read in this section, I wrote for the website that Carol Ann Duffy has been curating, inviting poets to respond to this situation that we're all in this pandemic. And this is a light-hearted one. I've written a few for the website, but this one's a wee bit more light-hearted. COVID-19 reveals all. Out of stock everywhere, she said. Only 6 weeks till we know everyone's true hair colour. I stopped dead, vanity rearing its ugly head. I'll look like a badger in no time, a mad magpie flitting out and in when the fishman calls, the stark line between dark and light at my parting, marking the start of lockdown. The difference a dearth of hair dye makes is clear as day and night. I'll be a fright. Why did I not have the foresight, the downright faith in my feminist roots, those hard-earned, seasoned attributes, to let nature take its course, go back in carefully shaded, coiffured stages to the source? Too late, as the dreaded grey progresses, gone the chance to be a goddess of silver tresses. It's that time. Old bat time, or hat time. So I'll finish this section with a song that Jackie's asked me to sing. It's from my album Night Touches Day, and it's a song that's a tribute to women of a certain age. It's in Scots and it's called Auld Woman's Sang. Oh, I hae locht and I hae grat and I hae dreamed o' chances, but now I'm old, my mind runs free, and my lightsome spirit dances through Fethin wood and orchard mains, what bluebells blurred mine. He led me down by Eddie's loch to the spreading skirts o' the keen. Oh, I hae locht and I hae grat and I hae dreamed o' chances, but now I'm old, my mind runs free, and my lightsome spirit dances. The peasies cried and the laddies sighed as the gin-flowers prayed o'er skin. Oh, lads can gie, but lads will tak, and the lasses deepest in. Oh, I hae locht and I hae grat and I hae dreamed o' chances, but now I'm old, my mind runs free, and my lightsome spirit dances. My bairns are awa' their feather tae, the brae we climbed was steep, but time's mine on the road back doon. It's late, but I'll rant afore sleep. Oh, I hae locht and I hae grat and I hae dreamed o' chances, but now I'm old, my mind runs free, and my lightsome spirit dances.
I really loved that, Gerda, and it was extraordinary that we set, because you went in the course of that we set from wee girl to older woman. You covered the whole span of our years, of our possible years. I was thinking about the imagination itself. You know, that wonderful poem that you read for your daughter. It places you right in there with the exact details, the dominoes, and everything that's packed in that case. And when you're a writer, in a sense, you're kind of packing an imaginary case all the time. You know, you often get characters, you often get people that are training to be writers to pack a case for their character, and the imagination is something that we enter into as if it were real, as she does in that poem. And do you feel that your imagination and how it works is similar to hers when you say at the end of that poem, as if it were all real? It's a wonderful last line.
Yes, I do, and I think in a way the artist tries to get back to being the child, because I think that that's what we have to do as artists. When I'm acting, when I'm writing, when I'm directing, is you have got to imagine if this were real, and I think that's the kind of one of the big hooks, you know, of technique is imagining, getting inside the reality and its specifics. So yes, I do. I think that imagining things as they might be is definitely the artist's realm.
And do you think in these particular COVID days and night, the imagination seems to have come into its own, in the sense that people realise just how just how heartening it is in these harrowing times to have the imagination, to have creative people doing their creative things, but it feels not a luxury, an absolute necessity in these times. And it's kind of fascinated me just how many creative responses that there have been to this crisis, and just how necessary the creative mind is.
I think that's true. I think lots of people are wanting creative responses. People want to actually hear poetry. I've heard people who are not poets saying that we love hearing poetry. We love seeing, listening to music online, and the arts definitely seem to be playing a big place. And I also think that artists at the moment too we're spending an awful lot of time imagining what other people are going through, because we're all so separated and confined and cut off. So I think the imagination is happening in so many ways at the present.
And do you feel, I mean, what's your situation at the moment? You're south of Edinburgh, near Pennycook, and you're with your daughter, and can you tell us a wee bit about what your situation is there and how that's affecting your writing or the ability to write?
Well, I have to say that I am very, very fortunate, because, we live in the hills and woods around us, lots of wild places to go. And actually that is where I, anyway, tend to find nourishment for my creative ideas. Going on walks is my way of kind of starting to write in my head. So we're very, very lucky, because there are lots of people who are very, very confined and don't have that luxury. We don't have a shop nearby, and I try to keep the shopping to once a week. I had a little interesting adventure a couple of weeks ago. I had appendicitis. I went to hospital, drove myself to accident and emergency, and was operated on. It was whipped out, and I came home, and I did kind of, I didn't want to go into hospital because I was worried about it being a COVID-19 zone, but actually they were fantastic. The health workers were just amazing, the NHS, and it was a good decision to go. And I'd just like to say that to everybody: don't stay away. Pardon?
No, it must have been a life-saving decision to go.
Well, absolutely. I think absolutely life-saving. And I think that, there's been a lot in the news about people being scared of going to hospital, but I think we need to do that if you need to go. So that was an interesting experience. Also, I was thinking when I came back, about your beautiful poem that you read last week when you were doing Makar to Makar with Don Patterson and Catherine Philpott, the beautiful poem about kindnesses called Small, and the incredible kindness that I've had from neighbours in this village when I was recovering, coming in and bringing us food and phoning and saying, what do you need? Just wonderful. So I'm a very lucky person.
Yeah, it has been one of the most extraordinary other things to come out of this crisis, I guess what we would call the silver linings, that it actually seems to shine a searchlight on people and a torch on people, and kind people get kinder and less kind people get less kind. But it's just really fascinating to see just how much people's personalities have been revealed in crisis. And it's really interesting to see also what people need to turn to and how much they need to turn to what they do. It's almost like if you do have a talent for something, then people feel like they want to give of it, whatever that talent might be, whether that be baking nice scones or cakes or helping somebody with the garden, whatever that talent is. And so there's been a kind of almost a great neighbourly community spirit that's been unleashed by this, which is really fantastic. And do you feel that you're particularly in a Scottish community? Does it feel particularly Scottish to you?
That's an interesting question, Jackie. The village that I live in is 2 miles from where I was born and brought up. It's a tiny village, and it's actually full of incomers. There's a mixture of Scots, English, French. I have a French neighbour, Dutch. It's quite a mix. I am an indigenous West Lintonian. I was born and brought up at home in the village of West Linton, 2 miles down the road. And actually there's still quite a population of people I grew up with there. So lots of Scots around. I grew up hearing the Scots language at school, at West Linton Primary and at People's High School. So in that sense, I do feel I'm among Scots, but I also feel I'm in, there's an international dimension, which I love, absolutely love. So it's a good mix where I live.
I think we've got a great mix for you now in the form of the wonderful Claire Brown. Claire is a fantastic singer. She's very Scottish. She's going to be singing for us right now a Brecht song, and I just can't wait to talk to Claire a little bit about this and introduce her properly in a minute. So Claire Brown is a wonderful singer. She's got one of these voices that just sends me, as they say. Oh, that voice sends me. She just every time I hear her sing, I feel kind of on the verge of something. She last sang at Oranmore shindig that we had after my dad died, which actually all three of our rotating singers have in common. They were each there that day and they each struck me and were a huge comfort and solace to me. The way that you do find yourself going to music and song when you've been recently bereaved. But Claire, I've known for a number of years because she's a fine actress and was in a number of different plays, a couple of them of mine in Manchester Lines and in the Adoption Papers. And so I've known you for a while, Claire, and it's really lovely to welcome you to Makar to Makar.
Thank you for having me.
And what song have you picked and maybe why? Tell us why.
So I've decided to sing Remembering Maria. It's Brecht wrote it, and the music was set by a composer called Dominic Muldowney, and it was him that taught me the song. But he originally wrote it for David Bowie, actually. So that was really exciting to get to sing a song that he taught David Bowie a number of years before. So that felt very, very special. But what brought it into my head was when I was reading Gerda's poems and the homework for Evacuee Day, just that image of the picture and smiling for the picture under the autumn apples, just to me felt very, very special, given the circumstances we're in now. Just being able to take that time where you can sit and not worry where you're sitting, and you can spend all day there, and you can touch who you want with and you can just I know I should have rephrased that but within reason. And it just that image of the apples, because there's a plum tree involved in this song.
Oh, that's great. Could you sing it for us, Claire?
I'd love to. It was a day in that blue month September, silent beneath the plum tree's slender shade. I held her there, my love, so pale and silent, as if she were a dream that must not fade. Above us in the shining summer heaven, there was a cloud my eye dwelt long upon. It was quite white and very high above us. Then I looked up and found that it had gone. And since that day, so many moons in silence have swum across the sky and gone below. The plum trees surely have been chopped for firewood. And if you ask, how does that love seem now? I must admit, I really can't remember, and yet I know what you were trying to say. But what her face was like, I know no longer. I only know I kissed it on that day. As for the kiss, I've long ago forgot it, but for the cloud that floated in the sky, I know that still and shall forever know it. It was quite white and moved in very high. It may be that the plum trees still are blooming, that woman's 7th child may now be there, and yet that cloud had only bloomed for moments. When I looked up, it vanished on the air.
Great.
that was really, really fantastic. I just love it's kind of like an anti-love poem, isn't it? An anti-love song, that song. It's just the lyrics of it just capture your imagination, what can be remembered and what's not remembered. What do you think, Claire?
Yeah, and he would have she would have been forgotten if it wasn't for the cloud. Oh yeah, remember it was her because of that. Yeah, because of that cloud. I like it. I like the sort of so whatness, but the fierce emotional connection to that cloud. That's what I like. That's what I like about the story.
Yeah, it's a really fantastic story. I mean, I just love it.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something, Gerda.
It was, yes. It's got an almost Ivor Cutler quality about it, I think. You know, you know his work, that sort of slightly it's slightly quirky, isn't it? This
Yeah.
as Jackie says, almost an anti-love song, and this idea that this kiss, and then actually, you know, you've just forgotten it.
Yeah.
Apart from the cloud.
Yeah. But actually, the other day I was lying on the marshes, and the clouds parted in two, and two aeroplanes had flown by, and it made the St Andrew's cross, and that was a really special moment. And then it vanished, and that was it's that moment. It's there and then it's away.
Yeah, like love often. There's something, but there's something really magical about that. But it's particularly Brechtian, that song, because Brecht is this master really of capturing different emotions slap bang up against each other in a way that constantly surprises you. I mean, so much that it's entered the language as an adjective. Brechtian means something to all of us. I was just wondering, Claire, when you're approaching a song, what is your route into the song? Is it different for every song, or you know, do you have to find something to relate to specifically to get into the song, or is it technically how the song sounds?
No, it's not technically how the song sounds, or I would lose my voice every time if I tried to be technically right. I mean, I've trained as an actor. I've had singing lessons, all that stuff, but that needs to be there so that I then sort of forget about it. So the approach into every song is finding the story, what the connection is, and speaking from the heart to whatever the song is. So there might be, like, for example, a music hall song might require a different energy or a different way of telling the story, and some might require more connection with another person. But at the end of the day, it's always about what's the story, how do I connect to it, and therefore how do I connect to an audience when I'm telling the story. And when I tell the truth, I don't. Go on.
no. And it's interesting that, because the stories can be age-old stories, can't they? There's a truth in a story that lasts forever and ever and goes on for hundreds and hundreds of years. It doesn't need to be a current story.
Yeah, without a doubt. And yeah, they're timeless as long as they speak from the heart.
Absolutely. Well, talking about speaking from the heart, Gerda's going to read us another few poems, Gerda. And this first poem that you're starting with actually is a story that fascinates us all, the story of Mary, Queen of Scots. And she gets to our heart. Every time I think of her, she gets to my heart. So Gerda, can you please read us your next 3 set of poems?
So this is about Mary, Queen of Scots, and it's based on a painting that I saw in the Hunterian Gallery by Gavin Hamilton. It was commissioned by James Boswell, Johnson's biographer, and the painting is called The Abdication of Mary, Queen of Scots, and it's very dramatic. It's like a scene from a play. There's a lawyer sitting there, and he's obviously writing stuff. The crown is on the table. There's a soldier grabbing her arm. There's another soldier outside the window, and there's a woman who I think must be Mary Seton holding her other arm and kind of weeping into it. And Mary is standing there just completely blitzed, looking as if she's almost not present, white-faced, beautifully dressed. And when I saw it, I thought there's something else that's happened to her, and it's not just being forced to abdicate. She's in Lochleven Castle at this point, imprisoned. And when I researched this moment, I discovered something that I didn't know, that on the 20th and 23rd of July, she miscarried twins, and she was forced to abdicate the day after. And I thought, when I discovered that, yes, that's what the painting looks like. It looks as though something else, this terrible thing, has happened to her. So this poem is in Scots and in the voice of Mary, Queen of Scots. The Abdication of Mary, Queen of Scots. Tak my croon and dinna fash. Oh, yon was our for me lang syne. You needna glom at my silk goon with your coarse kneve. I'm nae threat. I'll sign your muckle scroll, dae what I'm on, past, caring new. They last 3 days my flesh and soul hae wandered shores o' hellfire, dool and death. Twa bairns I cradled in my wame, all through the months, sae douce o' spring and simmer, slippet, cauld and steve, into the dowie air o' leaven's grey stain was, clocht frae my jizzen and bury it dood by, wi' nae prayer for all I ken, and nae sang. Twa scraps o' heaven, all my hope in their twin licht, smoor it noo. Though milk's aye bucking frae my breasts under my lace and stays, and I couldna gie a fig for your footering laws. Sat there screeving your Latin clatters o' queens and kings. Oh, I could run rings round ilka yinia in Greek and a', as weel's my bonny French. But you're naething new. Just ghasts. And oh, Mary Seton, last o' my fower leal ladies, dinna waste your tears on gieing up a bitty gowd and glister. Haud my earm, if it helps, but dinna greet for this. Mary herself was a fine poet. She wrote beautiful sonnets in French. So the next one I'll read from this book, Quine's Poems in Tribute to Women of Scotland, is about Eliza Junior. All the poems in this book are written in the voices of the women or in the voice of an object, related to her, or in the voice of her creation, or in the voice of another woman who maybe knew her. So I've tried to ring the changes that way. And this one is called Demerara, and Eliza Junior, I discovered, was born in Demerara in 1804, and she died in Fortrose in 1861. She was the daughter of Hugh Junior, who was a slave owner from the Black Isle, and an unknown mother who would have been a slave or a free coloured woman, as they termed them. And Eliza, aged 12, when her father had brought her and her brother back to his land, to Fortrose, she won a prize for penmanship at Fortrose Academy. And I thought that was some achievement. And I saw a picture in the Inverness Courier where there was an exhibition about, there was an article about an exhibition to do with the history of the slave trade in the Highlands. And her writing was exquisite and certainly worthy of a prize. So this is my poem for Eliza, and it's in her voice, age 12. Demerara. I've learned my letters well. My copperplate masts and sails flow across the page like the ship that carried us here, my brother and me, to our father's land, the Black Isle of white people, where I'm glad no cane grows. My mother always said I had a way with words. Demerara, river of the letter wood, its banks of trees with bark like hieroglyphics, a whisper in my ear from birth. Demerara, Demerara. I wish she'd lived to see my prize for penmanship, that I could tell her we are well and freed, that we don't heed the taunts of half-breed, octoroon, mulatto, quadroon. The dominie's wife says tawny. Told me she'd seen some in Cromarty too. Had heard rumours there were others come to Inverness and Tain, and saving present company, wasn't it a shame that Scotsmen didn't refrain from relations with slaves? She was pouring tea, and her spine stiffened in her corset when I declined the sugar. But it's Demerara, she crooned. It'll make you feel at home, and spooned it into my cup. I watched the gold beads, hybrid jewels, my father calls them, melt in the peat brown pool. It's a fascinating history, our relationship in Scotland with the slave trade. I'm going to finish this section with a poem about a woman who is also one of my quines. There's another poem for her in that book, but this book is a celebration of her art. She was called Christian Small. She died in 2016, and she was a local artist, what some people call an outsider artist, self-taught until she went briefly to Edinburgh College of Art and studied under Robin Phillipson. And this is a book that was a community enterprise and was published to draw attention to her remarkable watercolours. And then it was taken on, it sold out so quickly, it was taken on by Scotland Street Press, and I wrote the introduction and a series of poems for it. And this poem is a very short poem, and it's based on this painting actually, which we used as a cover. These gorgeous pears, 5 of them lined up in the window, and you can see outside there's snow, so it's kind of a bit unseasonal, pears in the snow. So here's my poem for the artist Christian Small. Conference of Pears. They gather in the window frame, 5 ladies, conferring on the ripeness of their fecund bellies. Snow throws light on the slight incline of their necks as one leans into another with the murmur of female sharing. Stalks like tongues comparing notes, whose skin is tight as a drum, whose is softening. Who will be the first to deliver sweet flesh in such unseasonal weather? In fact, this is one of Christian's paintings that you can maybe see behind me. It's a painting of dandelions, and it's gorgeously vigorous.
Yeah, that's lovely. That was lovely, Gerda. Thank you very much for that. It really struck me as you were reading these very different poems of all the different voices that you inhabit. And I was wondering, you've got a singing voice, and you also act and you write poems. I was wondering if you find a difference going from form to form, if you approach each form differently, or if you approach them in the same way.
Well, in one sense, I find that they're all the same thing. You're on a search, and it's not always immediate which medium is going to be the right one for the idea, but it usually falls into place. I usually know a poem when it comes to me pretty quickly that that's going to be a poem. But I have also worked, for example, one of the poems in my first collection, I wrote it as a poem, and then I wrote a short story based on the poem, basically what happened after the poem finishes. And then it also became a play, a radio play. So that one had several outings.
You got your money's worth there. You got your money's worth there, didn't you, Gerda? That's great.
Sure,
you come from a... Oh, no, I haven't actually. You come from a great musical family, you know. You have sisters. I remember kind of growing up and knowing about your family of singers and knowing about your dad. And how much do you feel the presence of your family spirit in what you do? You know, is it, because I kind of love that idea that you can be together creative, but also you can be singly. So
yes, well, my family is a huge influence on me. My father, you know, as a pianist, composer, he set lots and lots of the poetry of great Scots poets to music and turning them into songs. Hugh McDermott used to visit our house. He lived just down the road in Biggar. And so I grew up with Scots and music and a very deep sense of musicality. And for me, you know, a poem for me doesn't really exist fully on the page, because I think that the sound of a poem, and I think this is true of drama as well, it doesn't really exist on the page until you hear it in the air. And I think sound carries a great deal of meaning as much as the actual intellectual ideas. In fact, Peter Brook, the theatre director, did a lot of work on that with his actors, getting them to work on the vowel sounds and the consonants to find out what they themselves carried. And so sound value is very, very important to me when I'm writing.
It's true that we carry song with us, and we carry the vowels of songs, and we carry them in us, and there's a kind of a great yearning that we have sometimes when we hear certain songs. It takes us back and forward simultaneously. They almost exist in a kind of a limbo space where we can go in and there's that song. And so I'm going to welcome Claire back, and she's going to sing another song inspired partly by your readings, Gerda.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm going to sing Wild Mountain Thyme, and also known as Will You Go, Lassie Go, Lassie, Quine, come on everybody, let's go, and let's go up the glens. Oh, the summer time is coming, and the trees are sweetly blooming, and the wild mountain thyme grows around the purple heather, you go, lassie, go, and we'll all go together to pick wild mountain thyme all around the bloomin' heather. Will you go, lassie, go? I will build my love a bower by yon pure crystal fountain, and on it I will bring all the colours of the mountain. Will you go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to pick wild mountain thyme all around the purple heather. Will you go, lassie, go? If my true love will not come, I will surely find another to pick wild mountain thyme all around the bloomin' heather. Will you go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to pick wild mountain thyme all around the bloomin' heather. Will you go, lassie, go?
Oh, that was so beautiful. Absolutely amazing. Really, really lovely, Claire. Thank you so much. What did you think, Gerda?
Oh, I loved it. I wanted to join in. I have a harmony for that. It was gorgeous.
You should have.
Oh, I loved
You should have joined in, Gerda.
You should have joined in, Gerda.
No, I didn't know if Zoom would cope.
There might have been a wee delay, but we would have coped. We would have coped in the Zoom room with the wee delay and wee bits. Times we can cope, you know. We'll try it again another time. But I just love that. I love that song, "Will You Go, Lassie, Go," because you actually start to think that where the lassie goes is somewhere imaginary, a bit like in your poem for your daughter. There's a wee lassie I can hear lovely in the background. Claire's wee Eska.
Oh, that is my Eska, who's actually named after the River Esk that runs through the glen. So this song is. There's a deep connection with it with you, Jackie, with your mum and dad, and also my family as well. How we named Eska. So this song means everything. Sorry to interrupt, and Eska's trying to get out the door.
It's wonderful. No, I don't blame her. It's really wonderful. And did you like Gerda come from a musical family? Did your mum and dad sing as well?
No, my mum and dad can sing, and you would get up and do your party piece with all the family. That's what you'd do. My mum was the most incredible Highland dancer. She danced with the White Heather Club, and still she she was an amazing dancer, and she taught and she put me to Highland dancing lessons because of that. But no, not musical. No, nobody plays an instrument. Nobody. I don't know where I've come from, but no, just everybody would sing their song. You'd get up and sing your song. That's what you do at the family parties.
Well, I love that. I love those party pieces. I mean, I've been at many parties in my life where everybody would get up and sing their song. My dad's favourite was Brush Up Your Shakespeare. You'll have heard him do that often. And another one of his favourites was Well, All Right, Okay, You Win. I'm in love with you. But he had a whole load of songs. I just need to think of certain songs, and he just comes kind of right back into the room. I'm sure there's many people out there remembering the songs of their loved ones here, present and absent, but all present in a strange way through music itself, because people don't seem to go very far if you've got music in the room. You can find a way to connect straight back to them in a way through song. So I thank you so much, Claire Brown, for treating us to these two absolutely beautiful songs. Thank you very much to Gerda Stevenson for your wonderful poetry and your Old Women Sang. We every week, the Makar of the week, as it were, picks a favourite bookshop. And Gerda is going to tell you not only what her favourite bookshop is very briefly, but she's also going to tell you who next week's Makar is going to be. This is Gerda's wonderful book, Quines.
My favourite bookshop is Atkinson Price in Biggar, run by three marvellous women, and it's an award-winning bookshop, and it's just great. My favourite library is the Central Library in Edinburgh. Theatre is Oran Moore. And the next week's poet is going to be the wonderful Imtiaz Darker. I absolutely love her poetry. Her books, Terraced at My Table and Luck is the Hook, I think is the title of the other one that I absolutely, I mean, she's just great. So that is going to be a huge treat.
That's right. So I'll be back next week with the inimitable Imtiaz Darker, quite a tricky word to say that, especially after you've had one beer, and with the fantastic Suzanne Bonner. We're Makar to Makar. Our singers will rotate week to week, so you'll be hearing from Claire again in another couple of weeks. It's been such fun being with the two of you. I thank you both from the bottom of my heart. And before we finish this particular edition, I'd like to say, of Makar to Makar, because edition makes it sound even more special than episodes. I would like to remind you all to go out there tonight and clap the carers, clap the NHS, clap all of our essential workers, clap everybody it is in your life that you want to thank. Now Gerda is going to take it away with a poem that makes us think about hands and clapping. Thank you very much. And before I introduce Gerda to say this poem, I nearly forgot a very big thank you, which is that this whole series has been made possible by our fantastic funders, and it's allowed us to pay every writer and every artist. So thank you very much to the National Theatre of Scotland for hosting this. Thank you to Home Manchester. Thank you to Edinburgh International Book Festival. And thank you to the School of Arts and Media in Salford. Thank you, Gerda.
Hands to all our NHS staff and carers. 2 minutes to 8, we wrap up, step out and wait. No moon or stars to light this lampless pinpoint on the planet's map. Night hushed, happed in mist. Across the field, behind the hill, invisible hands are poised. We listen, uncertain who will lead. Out there, through the dark, the first palms give their little strike, and we offer ours. More follow, ghostly applause tapping the damp air. Flesh we've washed and washed, rough with trying to keep the killer at bay. Neighbours giving thanks to all those anonymous hands holding onto life for us.
Thank you very, very much for everybody at home. Thank you very much for coming. See you next week on Makar to Makar.